All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Jessie Collins from Pyramid Educational Consultants. Welcome to our July Facebook Live, Going to the Zoo, Zoo, Zoo. You can learn 222. I know for many of us, going to the zoo or aquarium or things like that are something that is a common kind of outing or field trip to do in the classroom or maybe with your family. I know I have a ton of my friends that have small kids that have zoo memberships in different cities, and they like to go walk around, and it's just a fun kind of engaging activity. So, um, per the title, you guys can see that we at Pyramid often like to kind of talk about how lots of learning can happen away from the table. So I know our preconceived notion of learning in school is like worksheets and sitting at the table and doing work. And what we want to kind of continue to communicate is both in regards to creating communication opportunities for children, or I guess any learner that you're working with. We can also create a lot of other learning opportunities, and that certainly does not only need to happen via a workbook or flashcards or at the table or something like that. So a lot of times, the reason why these activities are so wonderful is because kids are excited, they're out on a field trip, they're having a lot of fun, and they may not even identify or realize that you're embedding some math opportunities in or communication opportunities in. And as long as we kind of do like a little bit of planning, just take some time to think about it, we can really create a ton of wonderful communication and learning opportunities in all these things that happen in daily life, and especially in fun activities like this, like going out to the zoo. So we feel that it's really important to teach in kind of those naturalistic functional settings, because that is life, right? That's where life happens. And we want to make sure that all the skills that our students are kind of learning, maybe in a more structured fashion, are able to be generalized and kind of show up in other settings, like in the community, at home, at a job, and whether that's watching a movie at home or going out to the zoo, that we could learn that way. So it does just take a little bit of, I think, prep. I'm not sure that, as a teacher, I think that I definitely think this way. I'm kind of always like, it's always like running through my brain, what learning opportunity could I create? What learning opportunity could I create? But as a parent, or maybe even as kind of support staff or just other professionals, or even as a teacher, we may not be always thinking about that, because we're just like, I want everyone to be safe at the zoo today and survive and have a nice time. And, when we think about life and learning, there's certainly going to be this mix of times where we're going to be teaching, times where we're going to be taking care of, times where we're going to be kind of entertaining. And we want to try to capitalize, certainly have some fun, take care of when you need to in safety type or situations where those arise. But we think that we can try to plan or create learning opportunities in as many situations as possible. And so it just takes a little bit of prep. So I'm sure all of you parents know this, whether you're thinking about kind of teaching communication or other things or not, but making sure we're prepared to have a successful day. So just making sure we have stuff like water and snacks and sunscreen and change of clothes and diapers if you need those, and sunglasses and hats and things like that kind of just make us successful for having the things we need to make everyone comfortable on the outing. And so maybe having some lists. One of the things I think as we're working some of our learners for more independence, this might not be appropriate for like a preschool student, but as we get students that are a little bit older, either they could learn to follow a picture list or even a written direction list with the things that they need to get. And they could actually help you collect some of those things. Go find your sunglasses, go get your water bottle. So we could do that sequentially with kind of giving them a list and work towards independence with them being able to pack their own bag for community type outings or a field trip like this. Or with little guys or maybe our more emergent learners, we could just do really simple directions. Put the sunglasses or water bottle out on the table, and either via a picture direction or a written direction, just say, get your sunglasses or get the backpack. And so they could really be involved in kind of helping us prep or plan. If you have a learner that could benefit from some visual supports, some other things that I think are really helpful to plan or prep could be kind of having a schedule, We have this community travel pack that we actually created last summer that has a lot of the things that I could use. You could certainly make this type of stuff yourself or choose to do this in a different way. But I just want to kind of show you guys some of the kind of core things that we will sometimes bring out to support learners to make being out in the community successful. If I have a student that's working on weighting, I might bring a weight card. Weight's a little bit abstract, so it's nice sometimes to be able to give the student something. I also like to have a weight bag or something that goes with that, or even like a magazine, something fun, maybe a little animal, like maybe a stuffed animal, things like that that they could kind of hold on to while they're waiting if I know the wait's going to be a little bit longer, which could definitely happen in a zoo type environment. So we bring out something to kind of signal or indicate that we're going to be waiting. If your kid does well with timers, a timer could be nice to throw in the bag too. You could always use a timer on your phone. They make a lot of nice apps for that as well. This is our travel schedule, and this is something that we bring out or something that you could kind of make again on your own. This could be used either vertically or horizontally. And this webinar is going to come with a set of pictures. My printer was out of some colors of ink, so they're not as colorful as they will be when you guys download and print them. But these pictures could be used for expressive communication opportunities, or if you have a learner that's not using PECs and not going to be exchanging pictures as their communication, you could use these receptively to kind of set a schedule. So maybe your student could kind of sit with you before you go to the zoo or your child and plan out or look at some of the things that they want to go see. You know, which animals do they want to go see? Maybe they like a fountain, maybe they like the gift store, maybe they like to get a hot dog or a certain snack shop or something like that. And it can be kind of nice pre-field trip to kind of set a schedule and review that with your learner or learners. And then when you get there, you could actually follow the schedule. And as things happen, you could just take those off and put those on the back. So that's a kind of a visual schedule. If your kids can read, you could use a written schedule. That's definitely something that's kind of part of the prep that I would bring out maybe to make my outing successful if I thought that was something that would be helpful for the learner. If you guys do have a learner that's using a PECS book, sometimes people don't like to have the giant book around. This is a little kind of teeny like travel book. It's not meant to be the student's like main communication book, but this is a nice little book where you could put some of the pictures in. Again, these pictures that we made for the zoo, or you can make additional ones or your own, or pull from your child's actual PECS book. This is kind of a little travel book, but we would definitely want to make sure that your learner, if they're using a speech generating device or a PECS book or another mode of alternative or augmentative communication, that's something that gets packed, and we kind of figure out how are we going to carry that with us, and so that we can have that to use to create some communication opportunities while we are at the zoo. Another thing that we use sometimes is either a universal no page, or this actually kind of pack comes with these little clings. These universal no clings, there's two different sizes. This one set comes with the smaller ones. And what's really nice about this is if something's not available, I actually just went to the Chicago Zoo with one of our other consultants, Jill, and her family, and the wolves were off exhibit. And so let's say that this was a picture of a wolf. You could put the no symbol on there, and then that kind of indicates that that particular thing is not available. Or if ice cream's not going to be available, we could leave the picture in there, but kind of indicate with this little cling that's not available. So having some type of no page, these no clings, even bringing like a dry erase marker or a vis-a-vis marker to kind of be able to indicate to your learner maybe what's available or not available. That can also, I think, be something that's really helpful when we're going out in the community for all of us benefit from some visual indication of kind of what's available or not. And so sometimes that's something I will prep as well. And then if your student is using a visual reinforcement system, it's definitely something that could come with you. This is an earn do card, and you could kind of, again, make your own. And so this is, you know, maybe what the learner's working for. Let's say that they're going to earn that hot dog or earn, you know, Dippin' Dots or something at one of the zoo vendors. Here's some of the stuff that they need to do. And so if you have a kiddo that's using a visual reinforcement system, that might be also something that would be good to prep or pack or kind of put in your backpack. So just kind of something to think about. We are going to post with this video it will be available on our support at home page. So if you go to pexusa.com, you go to you go to pexusa.com, you go to helpful info tab on the top, and then you go to the support at home page. On the activities section, which is the top section of the website, there's a blue button. You click activities, and we'll put the link in the chat box here. That you can go visit there, and this video will be recorded, as well as a set of pictures to go with the zoo. The pictures that are on here are zoo, the sentence starter, look, I want, and where. So backpack, camera, snack, water, and then a couple animals here. So just some starter animals: giraffe, monkey, lion, snake, bird, bear, zebra, and elephant. So those are some of the pictures that we'll make freely available. If you have something like Pix4Packs, Google Images, BoardMaker, kind of any other thing, and this is our symbol set, it would also be a good thing to prep some pictures, or if you have a learner that's using a speech generating device, to make sure, like, if you know your kid's going to want to see the penguins, that's a picture that you make for them or program into their speech generating device, so that when you get to the zoo, we just have the vocabulary ready to kind of use. So something else to kind of think about when prepping. Also available on that support at homepage is going to be a lesson plan here about going to the zoo. So this will be available and kind of able to reference. It has some other websites related to zoo stuff. And then this lesson plan talks about different requesting opportunities, commenting opportunities, receptive directions, and then other kind of learning and things you could work on. So we'll talk about that in a second. So again, both the pictures and the lesson plan are freely available on our support at home page after this live. And that's something that you could definitely check out. Okay, so we've kind of acknowledged that learning can happen anywhere, that if we do a little bit of planning or prepping, both logistically with some of the materials to make people happy, like a hat and a snack and water, as well as with visual supports or other things that can kind of benefit our children or learners, we kind of pack all that stuff up. Then what we can kind of think about is, maybe what I recommend is, when you go into a community outing, is there's literally endless opportunities for, creating learning and communication at the zoo, but it's going to feel really overwhelming if you're like, oh, I need to create every learning opportunity on this lesson plan, because that's just going to be too much. So what I would kind of recommend is, if you're a teacher, take a look at your students' IEP, goals and objectives. If you're a parent, you could kind of think about, what are my priorities, or what are some goals or skills I really like to continue to work on in really naturalistic environments. And then, you could either write that down in a Post-it note, or just kind of put it into your head that my goal is to, create 5 requesting opportunities, or my goal is to give my student the direction, stop, come here, so they can practice, being safe, maybe responding to their name, maybe commenting on something. So, we can brainstorm a lot of different learning opportunities. We could think about what plans or priorities that we have for our children. If you're a parent, you could take a look at kids' IEPs or behavior plans, and then just kind of identify for you and the staff what our goal is or what our targets are, so that when we're out at the zoo and it's crazy and there's lots of stuff going on, we kind of already know or have a plan for what we're going to kind of create learning opportunities for. So I just want to talk now about a couple different types of learning opportunities that you could create. The zoo is a wonderful place for, obviously, a lot of language development and a lot of both requesting and commenting. So we can certainly work on our students' speaker or expressive skills at the zoo. I think I really like that phrase, like look, or I see, or I want, or even can I, and maybe like, can I go here, or can I look at this, or things like that. Those would be kind of great sentence starters or things we could think about. Where is the bathroom? Where are the elephants? Where is another great question. We could do some question asking at the zoo. Our students could ask for money. They could ask for a hat, sunglasses, sunscreen, to be pushed in a stroller, to walk, a sweatshirt, a tank top, water or a snack. So anything kind of logistically, obviously, as they're going throughout the day, that's certainly something that we could kind of, ask for. And a way to create that particular opportunity is, let's say that your kid is kind of digging, or going for the backpack. You could kind of unzip it, like hold it up, or even hold up a particular item, and then just wait a few seconds and kind of create that opportunity for them to ask instead of just kind of always taking care of and giving everything for free. I think when we're out in the community, there's lots of things to open, zip, unzip, close. So we could definitely work on some of that vocabulary phrases. I think it's also good. Your kid might want help carrying something. So maybe you're going to have them work on saying, can you carry this? Or directing someone else's behavior. Potentially, if you bring a camera and your kid likes to take pictures, or binoculars, that's something else that kids could request or use. The Zoom app, maybe more time to look at a particular animal. Maybe you're feeling ready to leave, but they're not. So some advocating for the fact that they're not done yet, or they want to have more time. And then also, if you have a learner that's working on asking questions, taking some time, maybe you're at one of their preferred animal exhibits and you could ask them questions and they could respond, or even getting them to ask you questions about an animal, like where does it live, or what is it eating, or things like that. Those are definitely things that we could program for as well. So just remember, if you do have an AAC user, it's important to program that vocabulary into their device, or prep that and have that available in their textbook or some type of activity board for them to use while you're at the zoo. In regards to commenting, our kids could certainly say, it's I see. If animals are making noises, we could talk about what they hear. If there's different smells, for example, you could talk about what they smell. Maybe they smell the popcorn. Maybe the animal has just relieved itself, and they could comment about that. I know a lot of my kids think that's kind of funny, and it might smell stinky or not smell good. We could talk about how it feels. It feels hot, it feels cold, maybe depending on what type of the year. So definitely something I think we all comment on is the weather. Maybe I like or I don't like. I like that animal, I love that animal, I don't like that animal. We could also prep and create opportunities for things like I'm tired, I'm happy, I'm excited, those types of things. I also love really making sure that I have vocabulary programmed in for things like cool, gross, that's funny, sweet, awesome. And I don't know all the cool lingo in regards to age appropriate and kind of region appropriate dialect and vocabulary for commenting, but I definitely think paying attention to some of those just kind of phrases like that, like yuck, or awesome, or sweet, or rad. Those are great things to kind of prep cards for, or make sure are programmed into a device, or even be ready to prepare to model vocally for our speakers. And that's kind of a fun way to work on really naturalistic commenting as well. If you guys have learners that are working on verbs or other adjectives, we could also prep some vocabulary and, again, spend some time at an exhibit and say, like, the polar bear is huge or large, or, otters can swim fast, or there are 2 lions. And so, if you're beyond just basic vocabulary for your students, we could definitely make sure we prep or think about planning for creating those opportunities with those adverbs, those adjectives, and any other vocab that you might be kind of working on with your student. So definitely the zoo is a mecca for lots of requesting and commenting. Also a great place to work on following directions. So outside of just teaching kind of creating expressive or speaker communication opportunities, we can certainly create a lot of listener or direction following / receptive learning opportunities. I think some of these are really safety related, so practicing stuff like making sure kids respond to their name, maybe stop and orient to you, something that we could practice. Giving kids directions like go right, go left, or go to the monkeys, or go to the elephants. I think stop, look at me, listen, maybe help me, follow me, this way, that way, get the sunglasses, get the water bottle, asking kids to open, zip, unzip, to come here, to throw something out. Maybe I'm going to tell them to look at something. Hey, Jill, look, there's an orangutan. Or I think also if you guys have maybe emergent learners that are working on pointing or following a point, that is definitely something we can work on even without the vocal, just kind of working on having kids orient to a point at something, or even having them point and orient us to something. So something else to kind of think about as well. In regards to what we kind of call some behavioral tolerance or some of our critical communication skills, the zoo is certainly a place that we could work on waiting. We could definitely work on turn taking if you have more than one kid, siblings, or a class. Maybe who gets to pick which animal they want to see, and you could take turns with who's picking where you guys get to go. If you had a schedule and there's a surprise or you need to change something, then you could work on tolerating changes or disruptions in routines while we're kind of out at the zoo and practice that. We could ask yes no questions, so practice having our students respond to yes no questions. For your kids that are working on no, again, kind of we talked about bringing these no cards. No, you can't have Dippin' Dots, but you could have popcorn or chips or a hot dog or something like that. So maybe working on some no and learning to choose or accept an alternative. Practicing the schedule following, and if your kids aren't quite ready for a schedule, just practicing like single picture directions. And then also, I didn't talk about this before, but getting our kids to ask for a help request, tie their shoe, open something, find an animal on the map or at the zoo. Those are all things that we could work on as well. And then beyond kind of language, there are also a variety of other learning opportunities that we could create. I think counting animals, identifying the letter that the animal starts with, and even that letter sound, or maybe even the animal sound that the animal makes. We could do a lot of functional academic type stuff with signs, so safety signs, also just reading words on signs. So if you have a kid that's working on sight words and we're trying to work on words like the or things like that, we could look for those things on a sign. They could read some of the plaques, or definitely things like exit, stop, arrows, things like that. Those are always good things to work on when we're out in the community. We could certainly work on that descriptive vocabulary. If you had kids that like to draw or like to kind of journal or are kind of writing, then you could definitely like maybe go to some exhibits or go to a little area after they've seen a bunch of stuff and just sit down, maybe break out some snacks, and the kids could write about something that they've seen. Obviously that could be differentiated for a variety of different levels. And so, bringing a sketchbook or a little journal and some pencils or crayons or colored pencils, things like that, if you have a kid that you would want to do that with, that is definitely something else we could prep and bring in our bag to create some learning opportunities there. If you have students that are working on navigation, looking at the map, maybe even if you're in a place where you could ride public transit to the zoo, that could be something that you work on. Paying for things. If the kids are going to buy something, just waiting in line, handing over cash or their card and actually going through that process of checking out or paying for stuff. If you guys have students that are working on imitation, either vocal imitation or motor or object imitation, that is definitely something we could work on as we're kind of walking around the zoo. We could have kids imitate words, phrases, letters, actions, doing stuff like opening something or maybe even pushing something or like unzipping the bag or picking up something, picking up the binoculars and looking, or picking up the camera and taking a picture. We could do some object imitation with that type of stuff. Always good to generalize and work on going to the bathroom. So, having kids tolerate kind of just going into different bathrooms, washing their hands and using different types of restrooms is definitely something we could work on. And so there's really tons and tons and tons, endless. I'm sure you guys can think of more of both communication and learning opportunities that could happen at the zoo. So I hope that this kind of live had you thinking a little bit about, I know often many of us have probably gone to the zoo a million times or a number of times if we live in a place where there is a zoo. And that while it's a fun kind of day out, that whether this is on a field trip or maybe just an activity that you're doing with your family, that this is definitely something where you could create a lot of learning opportunities for your child or for your students, and they might not even know or realize that you're creating opportunities because it's out, it's fun, it's in a really great place, and it's away from the table. So, and then remember, you don't need to do all this stuff that we just talked about at once, just kind of throwing a lot of different ideas out there. prepping and making sure you have the stuff and the materials with you, you know, the journal, the paper, the sketchbook, the pencil, the pictures, you know, that's going to help make this really successful and allow you to create those learning opportunities. And then once you kind of dig into this here, the other thing I want you guys to think about is if you go to the aquarium, you know, it might be a little bit different vocabulary, but we can target a lot of the same things. And if we go to the Natural History Museum to see the dinosaurs, we could do a lot of the same things. Or I know I grew up in Philadelphia. We go to the Franklin Institute. So wherever you live, if there's other types of, you know, museums or activities or a butterfly garden or things like that, a lot of this stuff that we just talked about and kind of thinking about prepping, planning, doing that type of stuff for these type of outings that we talked about applying to the zoo really could apply to any type of other activity that you're doing, and you can kind of follow the same process. So hope this gave you some ideas of some things that you could work on or think about if you go to a field trip to the zoo. If you are not able to get out to the zoo, the lesson plan does have a couple different links here, but one of the things I really like is the San Diego Zoo has live animal cameras, and I think there's probably some other zoos in the country that do this as well, which is really cool. So even if you're not out in the community, the cameras are kind of showing what the animals are doing. So we could definitely do some virtual zoo field trips as well, and that's something to think about. Even if you're not out and about, what are some learning opportunities I could create around books with the zoo, you know, videos of things related to the zoo, playing games with the zoo, songs related to the zoo, you know, and also take advantage of some of the really cool resources that are available online, and or even checking in on some of those animal cameras. And maybe that's something that you could do consecutively if you just can't get to the zoo, or even before or after going. You know, we might only go out to the zoo on a field trip once during the school year, but we could do some other things where we're kind of checking in on commenting, talking about the animals throughout the whole year if that's really an interest for one of your students. So just kind of wanted to also flag there are a lot of wonderful online virtual resources related to the zoo as well. Okay, thank you guys so much for listening. I hope this gives you some ideas. Please share as you guys want with any parents or teachers that might be planning a zoo field trip. Make sure you check out our support at home page, so pexusa.com. You go to helpful info, support at home, and this will be posted under the activity section in the next day or so. And look at these pictures, look at the lesson plan. We do also have some other trainings coming up that I just want to kind of talk about. You can go to our website. We every month are running PECS Level 1, PECS Level 2, and also transitioning from PECS to speech generating device trainings. We also in August have our critical communication skills talk coming up on August 18th, and that's on Central Time. That's a one-day talk, and that talks about teaching, waiting, teaching break, teaching help requests, things like that. We also have on August 29th, also on Central Time, our challenging behavior, prevent, reduce, replace, which really kind of thinks about the process of creating or really kind of engaging in behavior management, or kind of creating, whether it's formal or informal, a behavior intervention type plan. So those talks are available as well. We also recently will be adding some things that are available online for you to watch from the comfort of your own home. So definitely check out our website and take a look at the talks that are available recorded. And there's some new stuff there. There's some 1-hour talks and also some full day talks that are available as well. So I hope that you get to have some fun outings this summer. I hope you're realizing that learning can happen everywhere, and that we can create a ton of fun opportunities away from the table with just a little bit of planning. And you don't have to do it all once, just one learning opportunity at a time. So thank you guys so much. Have a wonderful rest of your July, and we'll see you next month.